What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook, late in the day on Friday. Thought we might get a late Friday news dump from the Packers, but doesn't appear that that's going to be the case. So I thought I'd just jump on here and talk to you fine folks about any number of things. A whole lot going on online today surrounding the Packers. Adam, hey, what's up? Thanks for joining us. Eddie, thank you for hopping on and seeing what's up. Keith, hello, thanks for joining. Obviously a lot going on the old internet today. Not a whole lot of action from the Packers themselves. But thought I'd jump on here. And I know, obviously, a lot of people are jumping on probably because David Bakhtiari was named to the second team of the All-Pro squad. That's probably what's driving the interest here. Or maybe, possibly, it has something to do with all the stuff going on around 1265 Lombardi, from the coaching search to the GM search to Bob McGinn dropping sourced reports about Mike McCarthy, Jason Wilde going on the radio talking about Aaron Rodgers, Russ Ball on everybody's lips, but for different reasons. A lot going on. So allow me to take a quick sip of my beverage here, which is just coffee. I've been outside. It's been very cold here in New York City, so I'm just getting warmed up. Wow, that's a very interesting question, and not the one I thought we'd start with, but I like it. Would Aaron Rodgers have been the same player had he been drafted someplace else? That's an excellent question. I don't think he'd be the same player. I think he still would have been a very good quarterback. I don't know if he becomes one of the best in the game, but all you have to do is go back and look at his first summers in Green Bay, which were pretty ugly as far as his output on the field and his play. For as much as people want to give Mike McCarthy grief, he, Tom Clements, and even Mike Sherman that first year did a lot to bring Rodgers along from where he was when he entered the league. Now, I still think Aaron Rodgers would have been a very good to great player if he had gone anywhere in the NFL, but I do think landing where he did in Green Bay and being able to sit behind Brett Favre for 3 years definitely helped. Packers will have to wait till Tuesday to interview Fangio. Yes, dropped by our Tom Silverstein. Fangio becomes a free agent Tuesday at 12:01 a.m., which is when his contract is up. Obviously, I don't think the Packers have even made that call yet because they know, much like the call to Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator for the Lions, most likely the same fate would await them. The Lions earlier today denying the Packers permission to interview Austin for their vacant defensive coordinator spot. I tend to think they'll wait out Fangio. Now, there's a possibility that Fangio could be named the head coach of the Bears by then. He did interview for the position, and the Bears are actively, obviously holding other interviews, but they're not going to let that asset go until they know what they want and or have as a head coach. So if Mike McCarthy is dead set on Fangio, he will have to wait until Tuesday. People don't give McCarthy nearly enough credit. I wholeheartedly agree. What will happen to Wolf? We don't know. He interviewed for the general manager spot in Green Bay on Thursday, which is yesterday. Sorry, these days all blend together. And now I know Gutekunst and Ball will most likely be interviewing. Well, Gutekunst interviewed today. I haven't seen any information on Ball, but I got to think he'll probably be interviewing also today or tomorrow. I know Marc Murphy had said he wanted to move quickly in the GM search. We'll see what other candidates they look at. I know they asked about Patton over there in Minnesota. Minnesota denied their request, which the Vikings can do because they're in the playoffs, so their season is still going, still alive, which means they are allowed to deny them, even though it would be an upward move for Patton. How much of the leaks are for ratings? Ooh, that's a fun question. The leaks. I assume you're talking about Bob McGinn's column this morning where he quoted an anonymous source saying that Mike McCarthy had told his staff that if Marc Murphy offered the general manager spot to Russ Ball, that Mike McCarthy would leave Green Bay, i.e. quit. Man, that's a juicy one. That is a juicy one. And let me tell you, Bob had a bunch of juice in that column this morning, from that revelation right up to the bit about John Schneider and Mike McCarthy and Trace Armstrong, McCarthy's agent, wanting to get Schneider out of Seattle. obviously it would take a whole lot for that to happen. Schneider just re-upped in Seattle a year, 2 years ago, maybe. Famously, Schneider had an out clause in his contract if the Green Bay job ever came open. Reportedly, that clause has been closed. There is no such thing in his new contract. If the Packers really wanted him, i.e. if Marc Murphy really wanted him, it would probably take a significant package to get him out of Seattle, especially with the future of Pete Carroll up in the air. Remember, there were rumors swirling that Carroll was considering retirement. And that, while it probably would have happened already if he was going to do it, it's still a possibility. And I would think Paul Allen, the owner of the Seahawks, would want to keep Schneider around for that kind of transition if they were to move to a new head coach. Now, how much might Schneider want to come back to Green Bay, especially seeing as Seattle seems to be in a bit of flux, and this would be a good chance for him to come back home and work with Mike McCarthy, who he is very close to. That's a possibility. Maybe he goes to Paul Allen and says something about it. But now, on the other hand, on the other flip side, talking about the report that McCarthy told his staff that he would bolt if Russ Ball was made general manager. Now, a lot of people have kind of responded to that on Twitter, both calmly and irrationally. And I've understood a lot of the angst and or comments about it. The one thing I do find interesting is a lot of people citing the fact that McCarthy and Ball have a long-standing history. McCarthy was a big but a component in bringing Ball to Green Bay in the first place. They had spent time in New Orleans together. And I know Bob indicated that the relationship may have soured somewhat. And I can't speak to whether that's true or not. I'm not privy to that. I do know I made some calls today. I reached out to some people, and I couldn't get any kind of confirmation on McCarthy saying any such thing to his staff. We've been trying at PackersNews.com all day to get some kind of confirmation. We can't get it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Obviously, Bob's been on the beat for 30-plus years. He knows a lot of people in a lot of places. I tend to think if he's putting that down in a column for the world to read and digest, it most certainly happened. So now, whether McCarthy is, playing a great game of poker, that's another question. It's one thing to say that offhanded to your staff. It's not like you put out a press release about it. But, to say that to your staff, or your coaching staff at least, and then maybe perhaps hoping that pushes Marc Murphy in a certain direction, that's a very good possibility. Obviously McCarthy's made a lot of money. He's in a good spot. He's in a good position in his life where he could walk away from the final 2 years of his deal and most likely be offered a job as soon as he did. But I still have trouble imagining that he would. I still would think that, obviously there's nothing official out there. He can easily say he never said it and then end up working with Ball if needs be. Now, what does Russ Ball think of that? There's that component if he does indeed end up getting the job. After all that, to get back to your original question, how much of it is for ratings? I wouldn't think very much of it. And I know everyone assumes that that's what everything gets done for on the media side of things. And, I will say, of course, we look at traffic and we're looking at ROI and what we post and what we produce. But that's much more so, say, something like the wide receiver post that I put up this morning off of the New York Times piece regarding the Packers wide receivers being the slowest in the league. That's something that it's kind of interesting. We read about it in the Times. I thought we should make a post out of that, and we did, and it got some traffic. That's the kind of thing you produce when you want to get some extra clicks and you get some buzz and what have you. When Bob McGinn puts that in a column, he's not doing it for clicks or traffic or ratings. He's doing it because it's newsworthy and he wants to put it out there. Same thing with Jason Wilde going on the radio and talking about Aaron Rodgers. Wilde had a radio show with Aaron for a number of years. And that is, if Jason says that, I have very little reason to doubt that the veracity of Wilde's claim. So, I don't think they're done for ratings. I mean, Wilde said that on the radio, and they literally clipped it and put it on Twitter. What benefit are they getting out of it from me hearing it on Twitter? Their advertisers don't make money off of it. They don't get web traffic off of it. It's out there in the ether. So I have a hard time believing any of this is being done, quote unquote, for ratings. Joe Philbin or Ben McAdoo coming back? Adam, sounds like it's a very good possibility. Especially now, McAdoo, I know, was up for the quarterback coach job in Denver, but that has since been filled by Mike Sullivan, the former offensive coordinator in New York. So I tend to think there's a good chance. I mean, obviously, Philbin and McAdoo both have a good relationship with McCarthy. I would tend to think Philbin probably has a better shot of returning just because of the fact that he has been an OC and OC in Green Bay, and they know exactly that working relationship, that he could fall right back into their working relationship. McAdoo obviously worked his way up, tight ends, quarterbacks, what have you, was an OC in New York, and, he has a good relationship with McCarthy, but I would tend to think Philbin probably makes a little bit more sense. Now, that doesn't, mean anything. Why is Detroit and the Vikes being so petty? Well, A, because they can be. Don't forget, the Lions are probably still pissed that they couldn't interview Eliot Wolf a couple years ago when Ted Thompson denied their request to do so. And that's I think that's all fair. It's a division opponent. Why would you want to give your assets to your divisional opponent to help them get better? Even if it is just an interview. I don't want you talking to my guy. I totally get that. I think, and there's definitely a little bit of element of, these division rivals stepping on the Packers' throats a little bit while they're down. Those teams have been looking up at the Packers for a good long while. Every little bit that they can get to rub it in their face, they're going to take it. And I don't blame them. And the Vikings has got to feel extra satisfying on their end, because the only reason they can do so is because they're still alive, because their season is still going. The only reason they can deny that interview is because of the fact that they are in the playoffs and the Packers are not. That's got to feel pretty good. James, do you see us staying with the 3-4-D next year? It really depends on who they hire as defensive coordinator. The pizza's here for the girls. It really depends on whoever the defensive coordinator ends up being. If it's Fangio, then yes. If it's somebody like Gunter out of Cincinnati, it'd probably be more of a 4-3. But ultimately, as Mike said in his press conference, and as Ryan and I talked about before the Lions game, they're in nickels so much. They're in sub packages so much in this league now. If they're a 3-4 or 4-3 is pretty secondary compared to who the coordinator is and what he does with the talent available. Zach, should we care if Mike McCarthy leaves? Yes. I know Packers fans, especially for whatever reason, a lot of the younger Packers fans want to ride McCarthy out of town on the rail, feel he's a terrible coach, feel like they're an instant upgrade someplace. But I'm here to tell you, Mike McCarthy is a very good NFL coach, and it's not preordained that if he were to leave, they would just find someone and Aaron Rodgers would just carry everything and, they'd go about their merry way. It sure felt like Ron Wolf was thinking that way when he hired Ray Rhodes back in the day. And suddenly they went 8-8, and oh gosh, wait a second, Brett Favre can't just carry everything. Especially since early in that year, Favre won 3 games at the last second, and everyone thought, Favre's going to carry us all season, and then it all fell apart. And then they got Mike Sherman, who was obviously a very good coach, really overmatched as a general manager. But again, Brett Favre was expected to do a whole lot of it, and they never got back to the Super Bowl. So this idea that, we're just going to replace this Super Bowl winning coach with some young hotshot or some other guy from around the league and we're just not going to skip a beat, I would be very careful what you wish for in that regard. And I'm not saying that there isn't a guy out there right now that couldn't come into Green Bay next year and help make them successful. I have little doubt that that guy does exist. But the question is identifying him and finding him and putting your faith in him. Like I said, I would ask you all to be very cautious in that regard. Does Aaron really not want Ball? All I can reference is what Jason Wilde said on the radio earlier today, which is that he had heard that Aaron Rodgers was not wild about the idea about Russ Ball becoming general manager. Now, that said, Brett Favre wasn't wild about Aaron Rodgers being drafted back in the day. Franchise quarterbacks are not happy about stuff all the time, and that really, ultimately, doesn't mean a whole lot. It's Marc Murphy's call. Whether it's Mike McCarthy threatening to leave, whether it's Aaron Rodgers not being thrilled with the possible selection, that really doesn't matter. And I understand there are undoubtedly factors in Murphy's thinking, but ultimately it's Murphy's call. And once that call gets made, if it is Ball, people got to either, get in line or get out. And McCarthy's actually in a better position that way because he can just quit. But Rodgers, with 2 years left on his deal, the only thing he could really do is maybe request a trade and or threaten to sit out. Schneider for GM would be the best upgrade, says Joe. I think he'd be a very good general manager in Green Bay. There's no doubt about that. No one wants Ball. And I've struggled. I mean, I guess I don't really struggle, but it's unfortunate because I don't really understand why people are so dead set against it, especially from the fans' perspective. It's because we have no idea what kind of general manager he would be. He's never run his own shop. Yes, he's come up from the financial side, but as Murphy said in his press conferences, there's a lot of ways to win in the NFL. There are general managers from all walks running teams right now in the NFL. And, it's just, I understand the reticence and I understand the history in Green Bay, especially with what Bob Harlan put in place and having a scout in that position, etc. I get all that. But this really strong pushback to the idea of Russ Ball being GM is just, I don't know, it's kind of ugly. I just don't get it. I mean, I understand that you're passionate about your team, but there's no possible way that you can know right now sitting here in early January in 2018 what kind of general manager, what his philosophy would be if Russ Ball were made the general manager of the Green Bay Packers. Now, he worked with Ted Thompson for a long time, sure. And he worked down in New Orleans with Mickey Loomis for a long time, sure. But the people work under their boss for a good long while doesn't mean they're going to operate the exact same way. Ted Thompson worked with Ron Wolf, was his mentor for however many years, and then he worked with Mike Holmgren in Seattle, and then came to Green Bay and ran his shop the way you have all seen unfold over the last decade. Now you can't sit here and tell me that I'm not getting a phone call. Hold on a second. Man, I'm so popular. So you can't sit there and tell me that, Ted Thompson ran his franchise the exact same way Ron Wolf did, because you all know that's not true. You know that's not the case. So how are you going to turn around then and tell me, well, Russ Ball is going to be Ted Thompson 2.0? You have no way of knowing that. You have zero way of knowing that. So that's where I'm just like, understandably, I understand the thinking that you want one of the personnel people, one of the scouts to take over. I understand that. I myself, if I were in charge, that's the choice I would make. But I'm not in charge. Marc Murphy is. These are Marc Murphy's Packers, and he's going to make his choice. And if and when he does, all you can do is wait and see how it plays out. That's it. It was that Ball call. Yeah, Russ Ball on line 2. Sitting here saying you're not getting a phone call. Yeah, no, I got a phone call. I just didn't want to answer it right now because I'm talking to you fine folks. Was that call from Marc Murphy? You guys are really funny. If Murphy, he wants you to run the team. No, he does not. Loving all the emojis, guys. They're great. Alonzo has some strong feelings about how TT ran things. Yes, he does. And all I can say is, I know Alonzo loved being in Green Bay. He loved working for the Packers. I know he felt a little constricted towards the end there. And I think he's in a really good spot for him. Marc Murphy needs to go. May as well have an owner now. Oh, that's hilarious. They're, one of the most successful franchises in the modern era because of their structure and because of the way they're put together. Guys, you need some perspective. Take a 30,000-foot view. Actually, they're not Murphy's Packers. They are a shareholders team. Michael, that's adorable. And all those pieces of paper on your wall, what do they get you? What do you get for that? Other than a nice heirloom. We just want a guy in that's going to do whatever he can to get us back to the big show. That's exactly what Murphy's trying to do. That's what blows my mind, man. Does Raji have any coaching experience? That's good. I like it. If Mike McCarthy resigns, who has the best shot at head coach? That's a great question. I really haven't even looked at it because it's just, obviously this thing just dropped this morning. I've been out and about and running around all day, making calls, doing legwork, etc. I haven't really given it a bit of thought. if that were to happen, man, the Packers would have to move fast. Things are going to be moving fast already around the NFL with these coaching vacancies, and interviews are happening all throughout the week. If they ended up, I mean, Bob said in his piece that he expected Russ Ball to be named general manager on Monday. If that were to happen, and then Mike McCarthy turned around and quit, man, they would have to sprint. Whoever at Ball would have to be on the phone post haste. We get to go to the shareholder meeting and help the team financially. Yes, Brian. Yes, you do. Very good. And I'm not one of those guys who says that you shouldn't buy stock. Blah blah blah. I get it. I get the attraction of it. I understand why fans love it. And I understand why the Packers do it. To quote Boogie Nights, wear what you dig, man. Joe Witt for DC. He will hold guys accountable. Andy, that is a funny thing that, like, I've gotten kind of a 50-50 pushback on the idea of Joe Witt being the defensive coordinator. One being exactly what you're talking about, because he brought guys in and out of the lineup and did hold guys accountable. Obviously, he benched Demarius Randall that Thursday night game in Green Bay against Detroit. And then because of that fact, because of the holding people accountable, certain fans seem to really gravitate towards him. Where on the flip side, people are like, well, his corners were terrible, and they allowed all these yards, etc. He shouldn't be anywhere near the defensive coordinator spot. And I tend to come down on the first side. I think Joe Witt is one of the best, if not the best, coach on that staff. I think he's been given not a lot of great talent to work with. I think he's made some really questionable guys look better than they are. I think he's taken talent in guys like Sam Shields and even Tramon Williams back in the day and got them to their highest potential, made them very good players, which is what coaching is all about. He really turned Demarius Randall around this year. I mean, you just got to look at the technique difference from all of last year to the beginning of this year to his benching against Chicago. Then fast forward to the Tampa game, it's like a different guy on tape. I mean, he's taking on a tight end in that game, one-on-one, and erasing him. He's taken out their best wide receiver in Evans on occasion. He's taking Deshaun Jackson out of the game. So that's a totally different guy than who we saw at the beginning of the year or throughout 2016. That's coaching. That's Joe Witt. To me, he made Devon House look serviceable. And let me tell you, if Packers fans want to get upset about Devon House's play this year, I got some Jacksonville Jaguars tape to show you. Let me tell you, Joe Witt is legit. And you can put that on your T-shirts and send me the checks. Jack Del Rio is a possible replacement if Mike McCarthy quits. Maybe. I don't know what kind of relationship he has with Russ Ball, if they are friendly or if they've worked together before. But it's a possibility, I suppose. All the mock drafts have Packers taking a wide receiver. Thoughts? Well, I mean, that's just one round. It wouldn't surprise me at this point. If it was a real talent, they're sitting there at 14. You got to think if a wide receiver is available there, that's say the first or second wide receiver on the board. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Jordy Nelson's getting older. They've got Devontae Adams locked up, but after that, Randall Cobb's got one more year left on his deal. That is traditionally how they've operated. Now, it's really hard to say without knowing who the GM is because we don't have a track record to go off of. That would be the one interesting thing this year is for the last kind of 5-6 years, we've had a really long track record of Thompson's draft to look at and could tell where he might go. But this year, it's going to be wide open. Love your dedication, Sean. They pay me. It's all right, man. Lynch has what? Not so sure about that characterization. Is Ball a sure thing? No, Rick. He is not a sure thing. I know Tom Silverstein wrote that column a couple days ago saying that it's all signs point that way. I have been of the opinion that Russ Ball makes the most sense for Marc Murphy. I know Bob McGinn wrote this morning that barring anybody knocking Marc Murphy's socks off in the interview process, Russ Ball will be the guy come Monday. But outside of that's mostly, reporting and guesswork. Marc Murphy is the only one who really knows. And there is every possibility that someone could get into that interview room and blow him away in the interview process. But we can only wait and see. Murphy is the only one who knows, and that's the crazy thing. Sometimes during these searches or during coaching and or personnel searches, you can talk to agents, you can talk to guys who maybe know the coach, maybe know the GM, etc. This is kind of like dealing with Ted Thompson, because ultimately Ted Thompson was the only one who knew who he was going to draft or who he was going to target. And, we could all guess outside of it, but no one really knew. It's the same thing with Marc Murphy. He's the only one, he's the only human being who knows how this might go at this point. Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. If McCarthy quits, then call Belichick. Well, they may be busy with a Super Bowl run, but I'm sure they'll look into it. So bringing a guy that your head coach and Hall of Fame QB don't like? Possibly. They're not the decision makers. Remember when Ted Thompson made the call to keep Rodgers over Favre? No one liked that, and that turned out all right. Got to stay in your lane, got to make your decisions, and then you let the chips fall where they may. And I understand not liking that idea. I understand thinking, that Murphy's fouling it up, but all you can do is let it play out. I think Murphy could pacify the fans if we knew what Thompson's role would be, a defined role would be in the advisory situation. I guess. Allow me. Ted Thompson's not going to be back there pulling the strings. Ted is going to be back there watching tape and writing reports. And when people are asking for his opinion, he'll give it. Essentially, that's what it'll be. And I think it's really that simple. Gruden back. If McCarthy leaves, get Bill Cowher. Oh, here we go. Who is responsible for the GM decision? Is it just Murphy? Yes, Henry, it is just Murphy. He will consult with people. He may consult with Ted Thompson on if it's an internal candidate. He has said he is using Jed Hughes from Korn Ferry as a consultant. He will undoubtedly talk to a bunch of people around the league and or in the building, but ultimately it is his decision. What's Mike Holmgren up to these days? He's doing color commentary on Westwood One Radio and doing a pretty good job, actually. If Ball is the guy, who's his top scout? That is a great question. I think early signs are pointing towards Gutekunst staying on as his right-hand man in personnel, but those are only kind of initial kind of guesswork. I don't know what happens with Eliot Wolf in that situation, but that's where the scuttlebutt leans at the moment. Personally, who do you think should become the general manager? Edward, I've been asked this a lot on Twitter and in emails, and I've said repeatedly I would give the keys to Eliot Wolf. I think the guy's been doing this since he was 14 years old. There is not a thing about NFL personnel he doesn't know. He would use every single avenue available to him to build his roster. He is very comfortable with the very modern trappings of being a general manager in the NFL. And I think he has a shrewd eye for talent. And he's really young, and it's a young man's game. Ryan Pace was 37 years old when he was given the keys in Chicago, so it's not close to unprecedented as far as the age thing. And I just think it's time. You've been grooming him, you've been promoting him all this time, and in the hopes of not letting him go. You denied him permission to talk to Philadelphia. You denied him permission to talk to Detroit. Why? Why did you keep him around? This is his time. Give the man the job. That's my thinking. Now, I'm not in charge, so it doesn't matter. Does this smell like kickbacks to you because Korn Ferry found Marc Murphy, and Marc Murphy is now using Korn Ferry? The distinction you got to remember there is that he's not hiring Korn Ferry, he's hiring Jed Hughes as a consultant. I know it's a little confusing. Korn Ferry is actually working with the Texans on their search. But I understand that feeling that you're talking about there. It does feel almost a little incestuous, Korn Ferry being so up in the business here. But, like I said, Jed Hughes is being used as a consultant only. And ultimately, he may bring a candidate or two to light for Murphy that maybe he wasn't aware of, wasn't thinking about. But ultimately, it's Murphy's decision. And I would be very surprised if he went outside the building to hire him. Rooney Rule, that would need to be satisfied by Monday to hire Ball, right? Yes, Zach, it would, which was why I think they probably are talking to, I know reports are out there that they have interest in talking to Doug Wally, the former, I do that every time, the former Buffalo Bills general manager, he would satisfy that requirement. Instead, we'll get Ted Thompson without scouting chops and lose Eliot Wolf. You don't know what you'd get with Russ Ball. I keep saying this until I'm blue in the face, but you don't know that. You don't know what kind of general manager you'd be. If he, say, takes over the GM spot and has Brian Gutekunst as his head scout, head personnel man, and you do lose Wolf, Gutekunst was good enough that he was the favorite for the 49ers job until he withdrew his own name. It's not like the cupboard is bare. There's still lots of other guys working in personnel who've got long careers in the NFL. This idea that if Russ Ball ascends to the throne, he's going to lay waste to Westeros, man, you people got to chill. How long will you stay at Packers News? As long as they'll have me. Wasn't that Dom Capers saying? As long as they'll have me. That means I'm going to get fired next week. Devontae should be a Pro Bowler. Yeah, I agree. But, the Pro Bowl is a popularity contest. It's a total joke. The All-Pros are much more deserving of your attention and consternation. These are the days of our lives. Yeah, you got that right. We don't know what we'd be with Ball, but we know we lose our best scouts. Well, you'd lose your most recognized scouts. Who knows if they're your best? Aaron Rodgers, first time starting Green quarterback general manager. Who do you have winning this weekend? What's so funny, Juan, is that my wife asked me this morning who was playing this weekend, and I had no idea. I had no clue. I'm so zeroed in on the Packers. And when I used to cover the league, I would have known that like off the top of my boom, 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 boom. I had no clue. I was like, the Bills and Jaguars, which sounds wrong. I had no idea. But I will say, give me the Saints at home. Will the Packers face stiff penalties if they... Sorry, could you write that again about Terrell Austin? I missed the second half. Back as an All-Pro, and I don't care what anybody says. He is an All-Pro. He was voted second-team All-Pro today. Whitworth out there in L.A. Was first with, I think it was 24 votes, and then Bakhtiari got 10 votes, which meant he's the second team. And then there were a bunch of other guys who got, 5 votes or less or something. But, Max, what are you drinking? I'm drinking coffee. And as soon as I shut this off, I'll be drinking beer. Are we wanting Wolf because of his father? I just went through a long list of reasons why I would want Wolf if I was in charge. So when I'm done, go back and watch the video and watch it through or rewind or fast forward or whatever, get to that spot, and there you go. Let's see. Do we know new GM in DC by next Friday? I think so, yeah, Al. I can't imagine it would take longer than that. Russ Ball didn't think Micah Hyde, TJ Lang, or Casey Hayward were worth more money. You don't know that. He didn't make that call. Ted Thompson made that call. That's my point. That is not coffee in that mug. It is coffee. It's just the end of it. There, coffee. Coffee. You people. Is there truth? I love this. Is there truth behind the Aaron Rodgers Russ Ball feud tonight on Raw? No, I don't think there's a feud. I think Aaron Rodgers, if I'm getting the characterization that Jason Wilde used on the radio earlier today, would not be thrilled with the hire. I'm sure Rodgers has his thoughts as to who in the building would be most worthy or who he would select. But again, it ain't his call. It's Marc Murphy's call. Marc Murphy's in charge. Aaron Rodgers is paid to play quarterback. Stop. Don, that's good. Any resolutions like run the Packer 5K? Oh, you mean New Year's resolutions for me? No. No. I don't do resolutions. If we bring in the 3-4, we bring in Raji. Nice. I like it. Dude, your pizza is cold for sure by now. Well, the pizza was for the girls. My wife got that and undoubtedly has served it to them. Yeah, I will not be dining on pizza this evening. I will be having grown-up food. What's the temperature outside? To quote Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, 1. I don't know. I was standing out waiting for my daughter's bus earlier, and I was freezing my butt off. You say we don't know what Ball is about, but there are numerous reports saying he has the same approach as TT. Yes, that are all guesswork. Sorry, but that's the truth. If you read Tom's piece, if you're alluding to Tom's piece, where he said Russ would probably, note the word, probably, most operate like TT. At the end of it, he even writes, Mike McCarthy doesn't know what kind of general manager Russ Ball would be. And that's the point. We don't know. Is there a chance, is there a decent chance that he would operate along the lines that Ted Thompson did? Sure. But we don't know that for certain. At all. Not even close to certain. Like I said, Ted Thompson couldn't be more unlike Ron Wolf, yet he was his right-hand man for a long time. He worked under him for a good long while. That was his mentor, but ran his shop totally differently. You don't know until they get in that chair, man. Nice, guys. I love it when the couch folks show up. No pizza, no drinking. Are you native Wisconsinite? You bet I am, man. I'm just waiting to go get my old-fashioned. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Sorry if I didn't get to your question. They do fly by very fast, but I understand there's a lot of interest here. I'll be doing Morning Buzz throughout the weekend because there's a lot going on. I'll undoubtedly be on Facebook Live if and when anything hits. So make sure you're, hit the like button, hit the notification button so you know when I'm live at Packers News here on Facebook. And make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. If it's going on around the Packers, we'll have it for you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.